Military option still on the table, says Yalon. We're moving on. The Paris terror attacks are still echoing throughout Europe. Following a series of anti-terror arrests in France, Belgium, Greece, and Ireland, EU foreign ministers met to discuss a united response to the growing threat of radical Islam. i24 correspondent Eli Hochenberg has more.
What was defined as the European 9/11 is triggering a similar reaction from European nations as the original did in the United States, a plan aimed at stopping the spread of terrorism. EU foreign ministers met Monday in Brussels to discuss exactly that. After the deadly Paris attacks and anti-terrorism raids in Belgium, the ministers are promoting the idea of building an alliance, including with Muslim countries, against the growing militant extremist threat.
I am pleased that the Interior Minister came together very quickly after the attacks to discuss political commitments and responsibilities to be learned from this experience.
The immediate focus for the 28-nation European Union is how to prevent citizens known as foreign fighters returning home from the battlefields in Syria and Iraq, even more radicalized and well-trained. A crucial problem is that the EU's free movement zone makes it extremely difficult to security forces to monitor jihadists. Travel surveillance or new databases to monitor all air travel in, out and within Europe is one of the possible solutions.
Of course, we will all be determined to do what is necessary to keep Europe safe. We'll be looking at some of the specific measures that will help to keep us safe, like passenger name records within Europe. So that's important. But
there's one main emphasis of the European officials. Anti-terror measures should be in cooperation with Arab countries.
I'm just having now, before we start, a meeting with the Secretary General of the Arab League, as the threat is not only the one we faced in Paris, but also spreading in many other parts of the world, starting from Muslim countries.
Police forces in France, Belgium and Germany have been conducting dozens of arrests in effort to eliminate jihadist cells. Furthermore, a planned anti-Islamic rally in the eastern German city of Dresden was cancelled due to, quote, concrete threat of a terror attack against the organizers and participants.
Joining me now is David Harel, Israel's CEO of security and risk management consulting firm Acero and the former head of international relations for Shin Bet, Israel's security agency. Thanks for joining us. You are very familiar with the European agencies of security and intelligence. Would the Paris events be a wake-up call for them?
I would say so, most definitely. The impact has been significant. Despite the fact there have been several attacks previous to the attacks in Paris, in Brussels, in Brussels at the museum, in Paris at the school in Toulouse. This one, the impact was greater. The fact it was on a newspaper, the fact that it was a failure not just of intelligence, but also a failure of protective security.
Because Charlie Hebdo office were protected.
That's right. It was clearly mentioned that there was a high threat to both the building and to the participants. Some of the editors had bodyguards. There was police outside, and despite this, two terrorists, well-armed terrorists, trained terrorists, were able to overcome the security, both the police and the physical security in place, and unfortunately carry out the objective they sought.
Those two terrorists were known jihadists. Can the European agencies put all those jihadists, estimated at least 1,000 in every country, under complete coverage?
No, there's been 1,000 from France, 1,000 from England who have gone overseas.
Country, yeah.
No, have gone from each country that have gone overseas to fight in Iraq and Syria. For every one that goes overseas, there's probably another 10 or even more that identify with the same ideology and could be just as dangerous.
Like Koulibaly.
Exactly.
Do they have the capabilities, the European agencies, to cover those people, to fully cover them in intelligence?
Clearly, they're very stretched. You can, every month goes by where you'll hear the head of an intelligence agency saying that they're having trouble monitoring all those who are returning. They're putting out warnings that it is difficult to monitor such a huge influx of jihadist terrorists into the country. So they're going to have problems with the resource allocation, and they're going to have to beef up the way they do things.
But from your friction with your European colleagues, do they have the mindset already changed after this event, or do they still need to change it?
Well, I'm not still in contact with my colleagues from the past, but definitely they have the will to do it. These are not the first terrorist attacks they've had experience with, and they certainly seem to have put their mind to it. They will be able to deal with it.
And the massive crackdown that we see all across the continent now on those terror cells, would that not generate another wave of terror, as those cells knowing that if they won't act now, they might be caught?
That's a very good question. It's like the chicken and the egg. In one hand, you cannot ignore what's going on because you're going to get another terror attack. And some people will say that terrorists' intention is to cause a crackdown, and that crackdown will lead to more people being attracted to the ideology. So on one hand, you have to use the carrot, and the other hand the stick. So you have to crack down, but you also have to look at ways to defuse the tensions that are causing this kind of radicalization.
Legally, do Europe has the means, the tools in order to deal with terrorism like that?
Not completely. They are already discussing ways of changing legislation regarding the internet and monitoring the internet to prevent jihadists having access to encryptology, to be able to store data, large data, and be able to mine it in the right way. Definitely, there's a need now to change some of the laws in order to be more effective, especially in the area of the internet.
David Orel, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you. That's all we have for now. For all the latest, keep following i24 News and log on to i24news.tv. Join us again next week for another Defense Magazine. Have a safe night from Jaffa Pod.